Hi, Taryn.
Hey, Sarah.
Welcome back.
To She Can't Do That.
But you did it anyway.
Yep, she did. Today we have Kathryn, who is a comedian here in LA. But before that, has a whole life story that we want to share for her. So let's dive right in, yeah?
And she's fun.
So fun.
She's so fun.
Love her.
Yeah. Enjoy this one.
Yeah.
So I was born in the South, and I spent a few years, my first 4 years there. So I had a Southern accent when I moved out here to California. I still have it if I talk to anybody from the South. My family still had it a little bit when I moved here. And I grew up I would say when people ask me, where'd you grow up? I would say San Diego. That's where we ended up. We lived briefly in LA area, and then we moved to San Diego, for my dad was a doctor. And
I was just going to ask, what did your parents do that you moved so much?
Well, my father liked the ladies. So I think we moved a lot because of that. We're going to be revealing some secrets here. Bobby kept moving him away.
Juicy one.
Yeah, it's a juicy one. He's no longer with us, so I feel like I can say that. Oh. And I would have said it anyway. And so we moved. And so he was a surgeon.
But go back to that. He liked the ladies. Why do you move when you like the ladies?
Because my mom moves him away from the lady.
Oh, okay. So he found an affair.
Right. So my mom would be like, I think it's time to move you thousands of miles away. Because back then that would be it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Now you do it. You know what I mean? Is it? No. So that's my take. So we moved a lot. And then we basically landed in San Diego, and I was raised in San Diego. And my father was Jewish, raised. He wasn't. They weren't overly practicing Jews. They sent us to Catholic school for whatever we were. Nobody was Catholic. It's crazy.
These dots are not connected.
Yeah, I know. And my dad's like, well, they don't. My father he's like, well, they don't have families, these nuns, so they'll take more interest in their work. That was probably informative to me where, everybody, it was the Catholic freaking church. And yet my parents are like, meh, you know what I mean? Like, take what you want, take whatever, like use your own brain, you have your own special brain, use that in understanding like some of the ideas and then, about it. And my dad was very into education. And so I had to learn how to read. Now, I couldn't really see or hear as a young child, so they thought that I had maybe a learning disability, but I was ill and I had like hearing damage and I just couldn't see. And nobody in my family had it. So they just thought I was just like the wild, crazy, like, Helen Keller, going around. But I could still read because my sisters would put me in their lap and that was close enough. And I could sing because I would put my ear up against the, those old stereos. And I could sing. So they didn't really know. And back then there wasn't like the emphasis on like, what's wrong with your child? You know what I mean? They're like, well, they'll grow out of it. And so then in third grade, the state of California required even Catholic schools, private schools, to do testing, which they wouldn't do. There's heaven and they're going to get, that was the only thing important to the Catholic Church. Are they going to go to heaven and are they not going to have sex before marriage? That was it. You know what I mean? That was like,
basically it,
that was the two things. Like, can they read the Bible? No. I didn't even know we didn't crack a Bible. It was Catholic school. And so when they did the testing, they found out we don't, it's not Bible. It's not a heavy Bible. So they found out I couldn't see or hear. And so that was a whole other trajectory now. So like now they're like, oh, what? And so I got the tubes and the surgery for I had perforated eardrums, whatever. Like I could hear noise or whatever, but I couldn't. And I had a strange speech impediment they called, but it was just that's what things sounded like to me. It would sound, like you're underwater. And then I could not see at all. And I got glasses. And then I like all of a sudden you go from a life of like, your own making, like I had my own life, like a whole world of it in and of itself. And then all of a sudden I have glasses and I can hear everything. So I say, I'm like, okay, no, yeah, I'm going to have an anxiety. I'm going to have a complete nervous breakdown at 6 years old, right? Because I couldn't really, it was a lot at that time.
Was it too much?
Yes. Like I remember the first time I saw my face.
Oh, and like in the mirror? The
Yeah.
first time you...
Like I never, like I
What did
couldn't
you
crawl
see
up on the
before?
couch. Just blurry, like
Just like...
blur. Like when, like if you're watching a show, like I'll say to Scotty, sometimes like someone gets a head injury and then they make it go blurry. I'm like, right there. That's where I see without my glasses. And he's like, holy, and I'm like, yeah, I had broken ankles, broken fingers. Like my hand, I couldn't see very well. And so, and I had created this thing, and my eldest sister had died in the interim. My oldest sister had a terrible reaction to a live vaccine back in the day. And she probably had an underlying condition of Dravet syndrome. And so all of that in combination, like my sister died and we had this funeral and this Catholic blah, blah, and the little, and then me being able to hear now, like I would have been able to process that differently, but now I could like see it and I could see people's actual expression, it was a lot. And so I used to talk to my sister's painting that had died. We had a painting of her. And so I'd go and talk my troubles over to her, and if you stare at something long enough, like the lips would move for me, and I would take my glasses off at that point to talk to her, and then we would talk. And whether that was true or not, yeah, it was
sweet.
Preshy presh. But it was preshy presh, but it was also like, what? My family, I'd come to dinner, I'm like, oh, by the way, Ellen said that you should really wear yellow because that's good, whatever. I would tell my family what you're saying. They're like, mm-hmm. And so my mom's like, Bob, she needs therapy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my mom, you know what I mean? Like she's like, and Bob's like, all right, okay. So I went and did that. And then I feel like that's still, all of that came to have to me to have this sort of, I've always felt, informed in a different way. And like I can read people differently. Like I can read things differently on people than I think other people might be able to. I don't know what, maybe it's a result of that or not, or it would have happened anyway, but yeah.
For how long did you talk to this painting? Not like in minutes, I mean like in years.
Years, for sure. Started before I got my ears and my eyes and continued after I got my ears and my eyes. So I would say 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for years.
And you had full-on conversations with your sister?
Full-on conversations.
Through this painting?
And she would tell me, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, like downloads would happen. Or when you, it's not exactly like one line of code, like an entire understanding of something would happen. I felt like she would download the whole, both your parents were abandoned as children. They don't know how to be parents. You're going to have to parent yourself. This is what your family needs. This is what, I would have these huge, and then I think it was just a coping mechanism because the family wasn't very functional. My parents weren't very functional as people. My mother was sexually abused. My father was given away. His mother left him with his crazy dad. You know what I mean? So they were, they were struggling themselves.
Also, how did they deal with a child dying? Did that change the full family community?
Yes, it completely shatters a family. For one, my father's a doctor and saves the most difficult. He saved the most difficult cases. Like you call Bob Schorr in if there's no hope, and then he'll come in and save the day. And then so his child died from something that he thought was a good idea, and then medicine. It was basically, it's very Shakespearean or Greek myth, it's mythological like that. And my mother, they're both in the military. So you move on, you lose one, you move on, right?
Oh, okay.
Also,
that's the
right.
kind
That's
of the mindset.
and they did have 3 other children. So, but there's always that scar or stain or thing. Now, no one ever spoke of her. To this day, if my sisters are asked how many kids are in the family, they're 3.
Really?
But if I have never not included her. I have never not. She was always a thing. She was always there. Even now, I don't think of just because she's dead that she wasn't my sister or that she wasn't part of the family. In life or death, someone's still there. To me, that's the whole reason that you love someone. It's you don't stop loving someone because they die.
Right.
And so that's the immortality I think that people are talking about when there's immortality. It is reliant on other people knowing if you existed, whatever, but people don't leave you because they don't exist physically anymore. And so for me, I don't know if other people, and to me that is helpful for grieving a loss.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I feel like I picture this girl talking to her sister through this painting, and I feel like it's a beautiful thing. I don't even think it's like weird or crazy or oh my God, what's wrong with this child?
I think now it would seem less crazy. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, but if you're around me long enough, you'll see that I'm a little crazy. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. You may reserve that feeling until,
I'm talking about that little child right now.
But I don't think, I think in my age and being around long enough to realize, I think that we all are still our little selves. We're all still the little pressy presh. And when you become a mom, it's hard to feel like you're also that age. As parents, I think we're so much better at, teaching our children how to be better people and then forget like, okay, now go sit down with yourself and have a good moment with yourself because that's a reflection. And that probably, and that was for me because neither of my sisters had children. I'm the only one who had any children in my family. And I didn't, my oldest sister was sort of a parent. My mom was very not hands-on. Nobody was then. Trust me. It's like, there was a thing on TV that said, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? When I was growing up.
Oh my God.
That was
hilarious.
that was literally something that came on the television all the time. And like, everybody's like, oh yeah, where are they? You know what I mean? Like back then that was okay not to know where your kids are. Like I would leave the house as growing up. I mean, we grew up in my generation, you left the house and then you did not come home until the streetlights came on for real.
Yeah, that was me too.
Right?
Like gone for hours with my friends somewhere in the forest or wherever. And
in the forest.
Nobody knew.
German. Just like in the forest. Okay. I wasn't in a forest.
I'm from Germany.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious.
We had a forest.
God, lucky you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The forest is actually beautiful. Something I miss once in a while. But yeah, it's so unbelievable these days that I don't know where my child is for like 5 minutes.
Right.
And our parents were just like, yeah, dinner's at 7. I don't even had a watch. I don't even know how I knew when, probably when it gets dark.
It's like my mom assumed I was at the Tarantino's. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like she assumed.
Sure.
But she didn't know unless she got on it, put out her cigarette and walked the block over there to see if Mary Jane, where's the kids? Right. And Mary Jane would be like, well, maybe they're down. I don't know. And then they'd sit and have coffee for about an hour. And then the kids didn't show up. And she's like, all right, well, just tell her to go home. And she's like, like there was no anxiety.
So different.
And the stranger danger now is like, really, there's not that many people taking other people's kids. The people who are taking people's kids are the father and the mother. You know what I mean? It's not this, it's not a, what do they call it? It's not a outlaw. It's an in-law. You know what I'm saying? So
statistic, if you look at the
and
statistic,
so
right? It's always somebody.
how does that affect our kids? Like I was more like, go on. I was still in the area though, but like I would tell, they're like, your son's growing up. And I'm like, well, when he's bleeding, let me know. You know what I mean? He's a boy. It's okay. Like, he still doesn't have that scar on his chin that all boys that have, you know what I mean? Like, he'll be okay. He didn't break a bone. Like I've tried to be less helicoptery, but I probably was.
We try to be very less helicopter too, Tara and I, but we are all more than our parents and our 100. Grandparents were 100%. But I don't know if it's such a difference for our children because they don't know any other. And everybody is like that. It's not just like that the three of us look after them. Everybody.
Relatively, it's not going to be different. But in the global understanding of like, did I get to learn who I was because somebody wasn't around when I did roll down the bank embankment and got the thing stuck and had a thing and then had to come home and then my mom wasn't there because she was shopping. Right. And then I did my own Neosporin and that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's definitely...
What is the effect of that for like, and then, there's also more information. So do they need to have that experience because they can just get online and go, oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to clean the wound and then I do some, you know what I mean? Like there is a less need for you to sort of figure it out yourself because there is the ability to do that. We had a big friend group. We had a couple friends and one had 3, one had 2, and then there was us and those were girls. So my son was raised, his best girlfriends were 5 girls and there was Aiden. And it was always funny. We'd all sit around and it would just be like, oh my God, it was just so loud, you know how loud 8 kids can be in a house. And we'd be like, well, if we leave them alone in Child Protective Services, it's best to do it on the Thursday because you don't have to kick them back until Monday. You know what I mean? Like it would be the only break we were all going to get, you know, Child Protective, we joke, Child Protective Services. Well, it's Friday. So you want to call on us or should I call on you? And then you call on me so they can come take our kids. And then we don't have to get them back until Monday because it's the weekend. Yeah. So that's
so funny.
Yeah.
That's where our minds go when we just want some peace and quiet.
Occasionally my husband would be like, if we got divorced, we'd only have to have them once a week. Yeah. 1 week and then you'd have them a week. And I'm like, well, maybe we can just do that without the divorce part. You take them for a week, I'll take them for a week. Didn't work. It was co-parenting.
What did I say this morning? Sometimes when I'm really, really tired, I think about being in like a car accident, so I have to be in the hospital, but with no pain. 100%. I just want to be in a hospital for 3 nights.
I got bit by a cat, which is a huge killer, by the way. So I go, I'd done it as a child and my dad anyway, but I got this bite and then I go to the emergency room. I go to the thing and they clean it out. And I just didn't think that the kid at the thing cleaned it out, but I'm not a doctor, sort of. And so then later on that day, my hand blows up. I go to the emergency room. It's full of people. I go to the front and I say, hi, I've had a cat bite. I came here earlier. And people are like literally in the waiting room at Kaiser. And so I'm like, so my name's Kathryn Schorr. Here's my stuff. And then they're like, Kathryn Schorr? Like in front of all these people, I'm like, I literally didn't even take a seat. They come in and the doctor's like, okay, we're going to do this system. And then and I'm like, well, when do I get home? Like, and he goes, oh no, you have to stay for 3 days. We have to give you intravenous antibiotics for 3 days because 50% of people who come to the emergency room with a cat bite at your degree of blood poisoning die. And I'm like, what? But I shortly after coming over that thing, I'm like, 3 days? Okay. All right.
That's your
and
dream,
you should see the pictures of me in the hospital. Like I'm sitting there like there's a little tray and I'm like, like it was like, because it was the first break
so nice.
I had gotten. And I'm hooked up. They had, and the ladies would come in and I would get like, and I said, what does the order say? Can I get Xanax? And they're like, yeah. They go, let me look. Well, you can get morphine. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, and you can have Xanax. Uh-huh. Because like there's nurses there because I have anxiety. I'm not going to do it, right? Yeah. And they drugged me up and I'm like, best 3 days I can remember. It was amazing, even though I almost lost my life. But it was 3 days.
Hand.
And my hand. And then I had to have a little baby surgery on it. Yeah. But it was great. You're right. But don't
Small
get an accident.
So I gotta have to maybe just have my cat bite me.
Yeah, just pretend.
I got bit by a squirrel, but that didn't get infected or
that's
anything.
That's
bubonic
plague.
That didn't
help. So there's antibiotics for that.
Yeah, that didn't bring me in the hospital for 3. I have got to come up with something else. So when did the funny come in? You're obviously funny. You're a comedian also. When did that start as a child?
Yes. I was always entertaining.
Everybody in your family, or are you special?
I feel like I'm special in all the ways. I'm special the short bus way and just regular. I think my whole family's funny.
Okay.
My family's funny, and I think it was. And for me, it's an affect too. I think it started because there was so much anxiety and there was so much turmoil. And so I was the comic relief. I could come in the room and I would do my Mae West impersonation as a 5-year-old, like, whatever. I had these impersonations. I would sing. I was constantly trying to change the vibe.
You wanted to lighten the mood.
I wanted to lighten the mood. I wanted to make things better. And also I think I'm a musician, a musical person. I can sing. And so comedy is also about timing and tone. So, and I taught comedy at Scott Sedita Acting Studio with Scott Sedita. And I came to understand that the kids who are the people that came to take class there, the ones that were musicians got it a lot quicker.
Oh, interesting.
So you could see that why, and you have 20 kids, and so or people going to do it, and you pair them off to do the same scene, and then you sit and they all come in and do the scene, and even though you've heard the joke 30 times, that group made me laugh. Why? What was different? Oh, because you do that. In its characterizations, there's different characters that you take on or whatever. But so I think it's naturally I'm just funny. Like I hear the joke. Like I hear the wordplay. Like my sister's very good at puns, which are verboten. Okay. But she's so good at it that I have to allow, because like pun is like the lowest level of humor.
So you were funny always. When did you get the idea to make it like your profession?
Well, I was a musician primarily for a while. I was a singer-songwriter, and I had a band called Kathryn Schorr in San Diego. And we made a record, and then that's why I moved to Los Angeles. But I was always funny, and I liked to write. I was more of a poet. And then I would, I played guitar. I took guitar lessons. I couldn't take piano lessons because I couldn't see, and they told me I'd never have a career in music because I couldn't read the music. So I picked up a guitar because, like, you can, what I mean? It's right in front of me. Mm-hmm. So I taught myself-ish and then took guitar lessons or whatever. And so I came up here for that. And then one day I was walking down the street in Santa Monica, and they were having they were doing these auditions for Peanut Butter and for just man on the street. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And I sat down, and they asked me questions or whatever, and I got a call back for the commercials. And they're like, okay, we saw like 700 people and not one person. Like you're the only person that called back. And so the ad agency's like, so don't blow it, because you get paid for like who gets cast, right? Mm-hmm. And so I get in there, and I got cast in this Peter Pan peanut butter commercial, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good work if we can get it. You know what I mean? Like it's great, commercials. So then I got a commercial agent, and then I started doing commercials, and because I was funny, I got those auditions, like the funny thing. And so that kind of made it that way. And then I started teaching. I started taking comedy for half-hour comedy for actually television shows at Scasadita Acting Studios. And then I created a relationship with Scasadita, and he wrote a book called The 8 Characters of Comedy that I helped him understand. Like, I went to him one day and said, hey, you can write a book about this. And so he ended up doing that. And then I ended up teaching with him, being his assistant for the advanced class of it, because I got it. Like it wasn't hard for me. Like it wasn't a struggle for me to look at the script and go, oh, there's the joke. That's it. In the triplet. I get the triplet, and I was still making money doing commercials. And then there was a break, and then I started doing, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to try stand-up. I'm a storyteller. So I took a stand-up class with Jody Miller, who's a great teacher, and I started doing stand-up.
Did that come natural to you too, to stand on a stage and talk to people? I know it's the number one fear of people is like public speaking. Yeah. Did you never had that?
I never had that.
Whatever.
I think the Catholic nuns beat it. I mean, like I think they made it ever more interesting, because if you were the type of person that didn't mind being the center of attention, then you were a pariah. And I liked that because I wanted to be the enemy of this, So I don't have a fear of that. I don't get nervous. I have a moment of nervousness before I go on. There's always this weird little thing. And then I get on stage, and then it goes away. But I am a preparer. So I rehearse. And I know my lines. I know that helps with the lack of fear for me, is to really I don't wing it. And I think a lot of people think that stand-up is something that you just go up and say. No, those jokes are, if you ever watch let's say you're watching a comedian that you like, that's the same set. Like we even joke about it, don't come, it's the same set. You do the same set word for word, because sometimes as we would find out, in a writer's group, like a comedy writer's room, there's 11 people in there. For one, you think it's funny, but it may not be. So you need to rattle it around. And then they'll come back and you see the script and it's not working. You're like, I think she has to say these tickets instead of the tickets. And you're like, try that. And they'll be like, oh, are you talking about these tickets? And then it'll be like, rah! And they're like, okay, so it's these.
So at that time, did you have like a goal or a dream in mind? Did you want to be an actress, singer, songwriter, a comedian? All of it?
All of it.
All of it.
I wanted to be a ballerina. I just wanted to be on stage.
Did you just say ballerina?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to be ballerina. And then as soon as I got to be like, you know, tall, you can see how tall I am and curvy. I'm like, okay, that dream's going to go. But I was a jazz dancer because of musical theater. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to be a skinny little ballerina because there is no gay man that's going to be able to lift me over their head. So that's out. So then it was musical theater because that was great. Like I can act, I can sing, I can dance. And that's what I did. So in San Diego, I was music theater. I did plays with the San Diego Playhouse, and I did, you know, one of the longest running shows ever there with, you know, and so I really enjoyed that. But there was an element of like, you have to get cast. So the art was sort of like, there's a gatekeeper. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I not have a gatekeeper? Little did I know. It's always a gatekeeper for artists. There's, you know what I mean? So then I thought, well, I'll write my own songs and I'll sing my own songs. And so I started writing as a kid. I would write poetry and my own songs. And then that developed into like, I had a band. So I'm going to have a band. And then, you know, they're always, you can play gigs but then it was just like, I need a band. There was always this thing. There was always, and I have this I like to collaborate. I'm a collaborator. I like having a partner. I like that. So I wanted to be a singer and a dancer and an actress and a ballerina, really, and all that. And then I did that. And then I did the music and I wrote songs and I made a record and I came to LA and gigged and did that. And then I got the commercial thing. And then the relationship with my boyfriend was sort of 7 years, was kind of not working. And so I kind of just shifted over to the commercial. This is great. It's acting. It's fun. I'm making money. Like actual checks are showing up in the mail that
and they paid very well at that time, right?
If you got a national, like I did a couple, like I did, that one wasn't so much, that was more regional, but I was getting checks, you know what I mean? Like for real. But then I did a Nike commercial with Peekaboo Street and that played during like the NBA playoff, you know, depending on the region. And that was a national commercial. I made a lot of money. Then I did a Vicks vapor rub one or Vicks drinking one. And that was a national one and in Spanish. So I got, you know, both. And then I did a Tostitos commercial. That was a national. Yeah. So if you get a national ad, you can make some money. I made some pretty good money. And that got us through when my husband was sick. And it helped. And then I started teaching comedy. And then it just sort of like every road. And then I did stand-up comedy for a while, and that was rough back then. Like the ladies are not.
I was just going to say, isn't that hard as a woman?
It's a hard, yeah. Like I actually was she can't do that kind of thing. The musical theater was less because there's always a place for women. Like they need the women. But in the rock thing, like in the band thing, like I would get done the gigs and people would come up and like, and I'm the front person. I sang the songs. I even played some guitar. And not ever did anyone come up and say, oh, I really like those songs you wrote. They'd always like, who wrote those songs? Like looking past me. And the industry was it was toxic for women. Just not at the performing level or with the band or whatever, that level with the other players, but at any level outside of that, booking, record. I mean, like, and this is decades before #MeToo. So like beyond. And then, so that kind of, I just got burnt out and not having, and then at that point I'd reached the gatekeeper, like, okay, I can still perform, but like, where is this going? Whatever. And then the acting thing was like, well, there's regulations. It's SAG. Like on set, a person will come to make sure there's no laws being broken. You know, like I felt like there was a sense of like more order and more to it until there's not. Right. So now I've made it through that gatekeeping. I have an agent, I'm being out, but then is it still, can she do that? No. You know, you're auditioning for, when you go to producers or whatever, the callback, there's no women. There's nobody. The camera operator, the director, the assistant director, the only women are hair, makeup, and wardrobe on a set of, so any commercial, there's 100 people, 5 are women, Right. And so then I'm like, so there's always been that in that industry. And everybody's like, oh, we've made it so far. And I'm like, okay, well, movies have like, it's 50% women. I'm like, but the heads of the department, who's the head of the music department? Who's the head of the hair and makeup department? Who's the head of wardrobe? Who's the head of the director? Who's the assistant director? Who's the grips? Who's the head of the departments? Yes, they've hired, but who are the gatekeepers? They're men. Who's, that idea. So then I'm like, okay, so at least I wanted to do something that I had control. So stand-up comedy, it's just me. I don't have to call anybody. Hey, can you play guitar? Can you play bass? Can you play drums? Whatever. Mm-hmm. So the stand-up comedy, I don't have to get an audition, but it is kind of hard to get gigs actually, which there's some gatekeeping in that. But at least on my end, I could do it. And then that was just so misogynistic of the industry. Like back when I first started doing it, it was me in the green room with 9 other dudes.
I can imagine.
You know what I mean? Or like a couple girls and 8 guys. It was like, even now, like I primarily, in my show, Kathryn Schorr's Comedy Club at the Culver City, shameless plug. I make it a point to like, I have 7 or 8 comics, 6 women, 1 guy. I mean, it's the reverse ratio. Mm-hmm. Or 5-2, but there's never more dudes than women, ever, like even close. Like maybe there's a 3-4, and I'm like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, it's getting a little, because I'm not really a what they call blue. Like it's sex, or you know what I mean? Like I like people who are telling hilarious stories about their kid. I like a story. I like a good story, and if you can be dirty and you can use dirty language, but like sometimes it gets a little rough with the boys, and I still laugh. Don't get me wrong. Some of my favorite comics are men. But that's a reverse of the thing. Some of my favorite comics are women. Like women sometimes can be funny, right? Like, and I was going to say, I just, for this, to bring this point home, I just said, okay, let me just look to see the 50 top comics. And all 50 were men in this one article. There wasn't a woman in the 50 comics. And I'm like, okay, well, that's from 2014. But still, like, I'm sorry, Ellen DeGeneres, Roseanne, these are women who have production companies, had television shows. There was people on that list that I had never even heard of. And you're not going to put Ellen DeGeneres, who's a billion. Roseanne, okay, she's out of favor, but like she had a television show and a production company. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy. And I'm like, okay, more recent. How about 2023? And it was like the 100 best comics. So until I got to Taylor Tomlinson, it was 25. Wow. And then the next female comic after that was 35. And that was Eliza Schlesinger. And let me just cut to the big thing. It ended up being maybe they did over 100 or something. And I got to maybe 115. And there were 10 female comics and 115. Some I had never heard of. And who wasn't on the list? Tiffany Haddish, Ellen DeGeneres, Roseanne, Chelsea Handler.
Sarah Silverman.
Sarah Silverman would make the list. Ali Wong would make the list. Taylor Tomlinson would make the list. Leanne Morgan, she wasn't on the list. Amy Schumer, not on the list. Nikki Glaser, sometimes on the list because she's become popular with the roasting and she's hilarious. But Michelle Wolf, she did the press thing. She's brilliant, and so I feel like that almost speaks for itself, right? Like, and then when I was sitting here, I just went for like the 40 and just look at the 40 and I'm like, Wanda Sykes. No. Janine Garofalo, right? Remember Janine Garofalo? No.
Who is making these lists?
Right. And listen, don't get me wrong. I believe that Dave Chappelle is a genius. I don't overly like his stand-up that much, whatever. It gets a little too whatever. But like when it comes to like writing a joke, you are like, and then the callback where he said that story and then he was able to weave it. Okay. Yes, definitely. I mean, some of my favorite, I grew up because my favorite comics were men. Because that's what I had. I mean,
I just want to say that's
even
because
Bob
that's
Newhart.
The only thing you saw.
I listened to Bob Newhart with my dad. Brilliant with the phone call stuff. Well, no, sir. Just that timing where he would do the talking to someone else and you didn't hear the other person, but it was brilliant, and just brilliant. The 7 Bad Words You Can't Say. George Carlin. The 7 bad. I mean, I listened. My dad had records, so my dad was an influence as well. Now that I'm thinking about it, we would listen to comedy records together. And that was probably our common thing. We watched Get Smart together. We watched half-hour comedies together. And he would tell me, oh, that's so smart, whatever. But it's male. And so, and even in a world now, like, and we all know female comics, television shows, half-hour comedy, most half-hour comedy shows are, it was a stand-up comedian, right? That's a lot of it. But if you go online and you look up the 50 top, 100 top, 40 top, blah, 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 it's going to be 90-10.
Why do you think that is? Because a male wrote that list and it's I think
for one, there probably is a difference. There's not a difference in how many funny women compared to men, but there probably is still a differential between how many women have chosen to be comics than men, because she can't do that just in general. But I think, why are the lists that way? Yes, misogyny, 100%. They're just, we just see more men. And you're like, really though? Because Ellen DeGeneres is on TV every day. And Roseanne had a television show, one of the longest running half-hour comedies ever. And Tiffany Haddish is in some of the most popular movies from Girlfriends, and she has 2 HBO shows. So is it really, because 30 of those guys on the list, I watch comedy a lot, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of know that guy, kind of know that guy, kind of know that guy. And yet these women who are powerful players, even in Hollywood, are not on the list. And so it's Amy Schumer isn't on the list. You know what I'm saying? Where you have guy and then the sad little like blurb that they have for his bio is like, he's done da 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 da, and you're like, yeah, so have I. No one knows who I am from You know what I mean? Like, really, over Amy Schumer, really, right now? So why is it? And then there's always been the thing that women aren't funny. Are women funny though? That's a standard joke, like, oh, but women aren't funny. And I think part of that's because, here's a good story. I was with a woman and we were at a party and she was saying how Tosh Point oh, who's very hilarious. Like I had inappropriate sometimes. I'm like, not okay. But he has said some shit. I thought I was going to wet my pants. You know what I mean? Like, so funny. Can go over the line so far. We don't get to go over lines so far because, assertive, he's assertive, she's pushy, he's hilarious. That's disgusting. What is she talking about? Like, she can't talk about your vagina, like Amy Schumer. She talks about her vagina too much. Oh, really? Tell me a comic that does talk about his dick.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, but if she's going to talk about her vagina, well, it's not a sacred place. You know what I mean? It's a safe place. But so that's one of the other things, that the lines are different for women. And so what they find funny is different. And so this woman was like, well, and then she was talking about Chelsea Handler, about being, she's kind of crude, and she's kind of, crude. And yeah, she is. And so's Amy Schumer. She's crude. She is. There's crudeness to it or whatever. And I have a crude joke here and a little something about, because I had a baby on my wedding night and on our honeymoon. And I have it gets a little crude. And I turned to the woman, I said, but would you think that if it was a dude, if it was Andy Schumer or if it was Charlie Handler? And I remember like the look on her face and she's like, no, I wouldn't. Oh my God, you're right. Like, she thought about that. So there's a differential for women and men. And I think because humor can be off color because of the surprise element to make people laugh. They're surprised that you said that. And then there's some recognition that or whatever. So, and then society doesn't really appreciate women who are pushing a boundary or saying something shouldn't but some have made Sarah Silverman. I mean, one of her funniest jokes is like, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, she was sexually assaulted by her OBGYN, but he was a Jewish doctor. So, you know what I mean? Like, at least it was sex with a nice Jewish doctor or something like that. Like, that's totally inappropriate, totally wrong, but like, it's kind of funny. You know what I mean? And she's making fun of herself.
Yeah.
And she's not punching down. Like, if you make jokes about people who have less status or have less agency, it's not it's not humor, right. It's bullying, right? But if you are punching up, so there are other, it's a gray area. It's again. But I think overall, women are not traditionally in every industry. It was been predominantly men. And so I think it's not overly different than, let's say, engineering or brain surgery or cardiology, but it is kind of difficult to see this person who's her whole set was, Michelle Wolf, that was genius. And then you see this person who's like, it was pretty good. And then not having the same recognition, whereas some things are, it's clearer, I guess.
Did you encounter that personally in situations where people told you, oh, you can't make that joke as a woman or something? I remember when I worked as a costume designer at a music television station in Germany, like the German MTV kind of. And I remember how we had one female host, who always got told, oh, you can't do that joke, you can't do that joke, you can't do that joke. But there was a male host who went way, way, way further and way more extreme in his jokes. But they kept telling her, it's not funny when a girl does it. It's not funny when a woman does it. And she was so frustrated about it because she was always just like, that's my kind of humor. That's something I wrote. I think it's funny. Everybody who listens to it's funny. But like the people who had a saying, the bosses and CEOs and stuff, they said that doesn't work when a girl does it. Did you have personally situations like that? Where
I've had, people come up and like, I don't know if you should have said that thing. You're like, okay, but did you hear the other guy talking about not knowing who he was slept with because he was so drunk? And you're worried that I made a joke about I had a drugless pregnancy and I talked about my, so yes, you do have that personally. Or just, I've been in shows where there's been 6 guys and 3 girls or whatever. It's better now than it used to be, but it's still not like you can just look on your Instagram page and see all the comics. I do it all the time, like 7'2", 8'1", 6'4". Ooh, that's pretty close, And I've been in shows and like I had a great set. Like I did a great job. And then there'd be the guys that did okay sets and they would just get more hoopla.
So now you have the urge to promote female comedians in your own club. Since when do you have that?
I've been doing this since 22. I got done with the whole breast cancer. You're never done.
You had breast cancer during COVID, right?
I had breast cancer during COVID, yeah. So it was super fun, yeah.
Super fun.
I was totally loving COVID because for once I didn't have to do anything. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't do anything. And then I get the breast cancer and I'm like, and both my sister and I were diagnosed the same week. So we both had it. Crazy. No family history. So just ladies, gentlemen out there, get mammograms because it doesn't mean if you have no family history, it doesn't matter. We don't even have the gene. They did our gene. We didn't have it. Stress and anxiety. And so I had that during COVID and it was as whatever nightmare you can imagine. Yes, it was that. Like, I
can't even imagine needing to go to the hospital for anything else.
Go to the
during
hospital.
COVID. How did that even work? They didn't even have the capacity.
Well, from the beginning of, I think I stopped counting, but from the first mammogram and then I had to get a sonogram and then you have to get it. I think I had 110 doctor's appointments between July 2020 and July 2021. I had 100 interactions with medical community.
July 2020, that was the beginning.
Yeah, no vaccine.
It was scary to go outside.
I had a surgery. Yeah, I had a surgery in September when you're not even allowed to go outside. Like I would joke and say my husband would just slow the car down and I would jump out because he wasn't allowed to come with me. He wasn't allowed to visit me. He wasn't allowed to come pick me up. I had to be wheeled to after my surgery. Couldn't spend the night in the hospital after any of my surgeries. I had 3 surgeries. No, I had to go home the same day. They literally wheeled me to the freaking curb and like tipped the thing over. You know what I mean? Like, bye-bye. And I was glad about it because like the hospitals were full of people dying of COVID. And that was the thing. And then I had chemo during COVID before the vaccine. And it was a lot. Like I'd be there the whole time and, we're in a room full of people who are probably not at their best moment in their life. You're surrounded by that. And the whole time you're just hearing ambulances and ambulances and ambulances. And everybody who works at the hospital, there's a pallor of just overriding despair.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, did you get the bell? And I'm like, they didn't even say goodbye. I had to go, hey, it's done. Like my machine's beeping, and that was my last chemo. And then they're like, nobody was. I'm like, okay, bye, thanks. You see on the internet, there's a bell, and I'm like, man, I'm like,
they make a big.
They didn't even say
throw
goodbye.
your party
And they didn't have
normally,
time. You know what I mean?
No.
And yeah, so then all that was over, and then I finally kind of kicked out of it, but you don't really kick out of it too harsh even after you're done with the treatment because they're still checking. So this year will be the year that I have less than 10 doctor's appointments because of it. 4 years later. Yeah. So you still have a lot. Med onc, bone scan. I still take chemotherapy, theoretically a pill every day, aromatase inhibitors, because it was estrogen positive, HER2 negative. And so it was tough. And I decided that I had to, after the 5 stages, from denial and bargaining and anger and grief and all that, and then you get to acceptance, win. And then after that, and I have this kind of theory going on, my thing about, okay, thank you, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, for your 5 stages of grief. But then what? After acceptance, okay. So I realized that after acceptance, which is just something you have to accept, okay, this is it. This is my life. I'm going to fight. I'm going to survive breast cancer is what I'm going to do the next couple of years. What I'm going to do in the next 10 years? I don't know. But what I do know is that after acceptance, you have to have transformation. You have to transform. You have to take, in order to be able, for me to be able to still be a participating human on this earth and have some joy or squeeze it out, I have to transform. I have to rejigger what I was before, because the trajectory of my life completely changed. And I'm a planner. I had it all planned out. That is no longer am I going to be here in 10 years? Could be. Could I have a recurrence? Going to do everything I can to keep from having a recurrence. I'm going to do everything they tell me to do. I'm not going to drink cigarettes. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. Never did. Don't drink alcohol. Never did. I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do yoga. I'm not going to eat fried food. I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not going to eat pork. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to take my pill every day at the same time. I'm not, you know what I mean? I will try. I'm going to put in that because I'm that girl. I'm going to do all the things. So for me, the anxiety of that would be if it comes back, it's well, I did everything. I didn't not do the thing. I did the thing. And so that's the thing. So after the acceptance, transformation, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be? And I'm you know what? I'm going to be somebody like I've always been, who takes a bad situation and makes it funny, who takes a situation that's unbearable to think, especially with people around me love, unbearable to think that my kid's going to maybe have to bury his mom. That's unbearable. That was the unbearable pain. And I make a joke about it. I'm I felt really good about myself that I wasn't worried about me. I was just worried about my son because he was going to lose his favorite parent. And so that was funny to me about it. And so now I have a thing about the burial. They're talking about all these different ways to be buried, and I tell everybody jokingly, do not cremate me because I could be a saint. And you can't be cremated, because there's these tests for saints. And one is that your body doesn't decompose. And so I want to, and I have, and I have my funeral arrangements that I have, and I pretend it's 7 pages long. You know what I mean? All that stuff. And I want a big band. I want a band. I want the riderless horse. I want every tradition from everything. The military. I want the horse with the things. I want the rifles with the empty boots. I want the New Orleans band. I want joke about it all the time. And then, my kid, who's also very funny, he's well, no, we're just gonna, we're gonna cremate you, and we're just gonna put you out with the trash. I'm oh my God, it's joking, we have this big old thing, whatever. And I'm you better be careful, or I'm going to pick making me a tree. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Where you make him I'm going to make you be a tree, and I'm going to make you water me. And my son's
exactly. Well, you're going to be dead, so
yeah, doesn't really matter. Yeah. And, right. And so Yeah. So what I do is, so you transformed after that, after the hard part. And then I just try and find the good in it and try and find the funny in it. I remember the idea that every time you laugh, you get brain cells, whether that's true or not. Laughing is the only thing that grows your brain cell, which is probably not true. But
I like that theory. Let's
just
believe in it.
Right?
Let's just believe in it.
Yeah. And so I thought, really, what is the best feeling in the world? Like the best feeling in the world is like you're crying, maybe you're sad, and then someone says something funny and all of a sudden you're laughing through tears.
Right.
And that's like, I'm sure the Germans have a word for it because you're great for that. Like having words for shit like that. You know what I mean?
Everything.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like I love that when someone said the word for like remembering someone's name after your, like the word. English isn't good for that, but that feeling of like,
now you make me think, but we
right?
don't have a word.
You don't have a word for laughing so hard you're crying.
Or this one's like you're actually sad and then you laugh, and then that feeling of like there's light. Maybe it's there's light at the end of this tunnel. We can still laugh.
Oh my God, my German people, please help me with it.
And it's kind of that it's the idea of like it's funny now. Like, when you're in a terrible thing and we're going to laugh about this later, that idea where the worst moment, but then it's the best story later where like the flat tire and then you had to go to the thing, you're covered in mud, you're crying, so I always, I value that.
And I think there's so many things that are too heavy, like your experience going through cancer during COVID and being isolated from anyone that could support you through that and be by your side. I mean, I can't even imagine. But even if it's just in a humorous way, being able to talk about it releases it a little bit and adds levity to such a heavy situation that maybe you couldn't talk about it otherwise because it is just so heavy. The only way to discuss it and to let it out even a little.
100%. If you wanted me to have a real conversation about what happened, we'd all be crying.
Yeah. We can handle it.
And that's not going to help at this point. And it does. Yes, I cried and stuff. But at this point for like, I'm past the acceptance. So at this point, now what? And so like, what am I going to manifest? What am I going to transform that into? What am I going to turn that, or what little pieces of good am I going to get out of it? I hope that I can be someone, and was someone, because I would post online my bald head and then I'd put the little baby chick and I'm like, who wore it better? And just whatever I could, like, cause people were weirdly stressed about the hair loss thing. Like every time I'm like, dudes, I was a hairdresser. I shaved my head. I was a punk. I don't care that I'm losing my hair. You know what I mean? Like it was interesting what people had. Like when I had the baby, I was like, oh, the pain. I can deal with pain. Can we talk about the hemorrhoid? Can we talk about the hemorrhoids?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the hemorrhoids? Nobody told me about the hemorrhoids. I had one that was getting mail. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God, it was so big. I can't even I would joke and I'd say like, it was so bright red that people would flash their brights with me when I'm driving. I'm like, how can you see it? I don't know. They're like, cause it was the size of a fucking house. Nobody wants to talk about that part. You know what I'm saying? And like, and the other things about like, it's insane. So, like 1 out of 8 women are going to have breast cancer, so they say, and then of other cancers and, have thyroid, whatever. Let's talk about it. Like nobody talks about menopause. We are now, but like nobody talks about menopause. Some perimenopause. What's that? Even, so, you're right. When you say it diffuses it takes its power away, the negative power, the drag. It takes that away from it because like, oh, if we can talk about it, then it's not the big, ugly, dark thing in the closet or whatever. Yeah. So
you also take the power back kind of, because this stupid thing just happens to me and it's out of my control, but I'm going to make out of it what I'm going to make out of it.
Right.
I want to make a funny story out of it. That's my...
And I have a joke about that when people are like, about the hair, because everybody was so concerned about my hair. I'm like, are you concerned I'm going to die though? No? Okay. So, just the ball. Then the ball then.
No, just the
ball.
hair.
Okay. Good to know. So they would be like, oh, you should shave your head. It'll make you feel like you have control of your life again. And I say, well, the problem with that is that I've never felt like I have control of my life. So being bald is not going to help that. And then I joke and say, hey, Susan, why don't you shave your head and see if you can get control of that drinking problem? See, doesn't work. Being bald doesn't help anything. And except you don't have to do anything to your hair, which I loved because I have this big, thick hair. And I remember when I was falling out and it was finally time to I didn't shave. And it was just this horror mess. And it didn't fall out as fast as other people. So I could still fake it a little bit, but it got to a point where I couldn't fake it. It was sad. And so I decided at that point to get rid of it. Trim. All of my hair is in a basket. And it was, it was harder than I thought it was going to be. But I have been shaved punk before. And it was hot at that time. It was warm. And I know, oh my God, I'm so hot all the time. And so my husband said, I'll sweep. It's fine. So you don't have to look at it. I'll take it out. Don't worry. You just take a shower. And so I get in the shower and I felt water on my scalp for the first time in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, this feels so good. Are you kidding me? And he's like, so you're okay then? And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I went out and then I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk out in the wind. And I went outside and the wind hitting my scalp. I was like, God, this feels so good. It was so yummy. I was so happy about it. And for the first time for those 6 months or so, I didn't have hot head at night. You know what I mean? You have to flip the pillow and it was so funny how it ended up being this. And then I was a little stressed that it wasn't going to come back because I didn't want to be bald, but I wasn't going to be pissing on the good things about it. It was I wasn't hot anymore. My neck wasn't hot. There was good things about it.
That's so impressive though, that you're able to make that out of a situation like that and see even anything positive in it. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great gift.
Well, thank you.
Because I don't blame anybody who couldn't. I probably couldn't. I would probably just hate everything.
I would focus on the negative.
That would happen to me.
The negative would be too big.
No. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You guys, you think that. But I do believe that it's just human nature to find whatever it is to get through it. And I do think that, yes, I had that point where it's shit, this is terrible, I'm going to die. It's awful. And it was really bad. And then I think we all, and if you don't want to, you're like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to go through this. I'm just going to, and that's the thing. And people do that. And I have no judgment. But if you're not going to accept the fact that you want to end your life, let's say, you got to find the thing. You find the thing. And whether it's your kid or your partner or you or other people out there who need you as strangers who may need you in life, you find the thing. You do. You find the thing. And if you don't have it happening to you, you can't imagine what the thing's going to be. I never imagined that. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm going to go bald and make fun of it, and that'll help people. I never thought that. Mm-hmm. I don't. And even when I was going through it, I wasn't thinking that necessarily, but I did appreciate being, able to cut in line when I showed up at the coffee shop with bald head. You know what I mean? I was, no, you go first. I'm like, thank you. I have cancer, and so there were perks, you know what I mean? There's some perks, and that restored my faith in mankind. Really. That's the other thing about having something really bad happen to you is that people I didn't know very well were so loving. Perfect strangers here in line. I got that. I'll buy that. I'll get that latte. I got it. And so strangers, because they saw a person that they didn't know, nor will they ever really know me. And for their selfish reason, but it did make me feel good. It was helpful. It made me feel oh, okay. Or the guys who do the blow and mow my next door neighbor, blow and mow on mine, giving me a little, because look what she's going through. They see me coming and going or whatever. And eating out and people comping my husband's and my meal. I'm like, oh, did this? Oh, they didn't want you to be picked out. And then what do? I do that too. Because I learned from that stranger who did that for me, that it really did make a difference. It got me through that day. And so you great things happen even in the worst shit. Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. There's going to be a disaster. The building's going to be collapsing. It's going to be awful. It's terrible. Look for the helpers. Look at the people who are running into that burning building. Looking for the guy who went up the stairs and carried the person down because they lost their wheelchair down 34 flights of stairs. Look for the helpers. look for these nurses on the chemo ward. These ladies, oh my God, every day. That's what they do. That's their full frickin' time job. And they're just showing up every day. They may not be talking to me because COVID's going on, and I get it. Don't look at me. But they're showing up. Look at these doctors that are here that sacrificed 12 years of their life, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, intern, residency, maybe another 4 years for their specialty because they're a med-onc. So they've sacrificed 15 years of their life just so that they can give me maybe another 10 or 20 or 30. They don't know. Nobody knows. But they did that. So just know, if you guys think that you wouldn't be a hero or whatever, or handle it well, I 100% know you would. I know you would.
I hope we would. But I think that's your gift, is you find something positive and you find not the humor in things. That sounds so cliche, but you find something that adds levity to a heavy situation.
Because there is a balloon. There is helium in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There is that element. There's an element out there that you can use in every situation. And so I think you just learn that you can get through there. And don't get me wrong. There were times when I'm like, I am done. Okay. I get it, universe. Okay. I got the message. It's not my time. I'll come back, whoever. I don't know. I'm not here to say that there weren't those moments. And then they go. They fade. They go away. It's 3 days. I found out that the first time I had the terrible depression after the surgery, I was like, and then the second time, it was like, it seems like exactly the same amount of days that I'm having this really dark night of the soul. And then the third surgery, I'm like, I'm going to see if it's on day 14. And sure enough, day 14, I had just the darkest nights of the soul for like 3 days, 4 days. And I said, oh, maybe it's the drugs. Maybe it's the anesthesia. What is it? Because it was like
clockwork.
Yeah, like clockwork. And so, and I'm a curious person. So sometimes just the distraction of my own mind, just being like, oh, I wonder what this is about. You know what I mean? Versus being in the thing. I'm just always like information rich. I like more information. So, yeah. So
did you find out why on the 14th day?
No, I didn't. But I came to my own conclusion that it's probably when my liver and my kidneys have finally washed it all out, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the first time it was scary. And then the second time there was a level of recognition that like, oh, and maybe not recognition on the timing, but at least, oh, I got through the last time. I had therapy and my therapist or whatever. And then by the third surgery, I was like, I wonder if this is going to happen. And interesting, weirdly, a year later, probably from the chemo, I had this issue with my kidneys, which is a whole nother story. But anyway, I had to have another surgery to open a ureter for my kidney. And they didn't know. It could have had it my whole life. Who knows? Whatever. So I had to have this other surgery. So I was really on it with that surgery. Because I'm like, okay, 4th surgery in 2023. Mm-hmm. It was just, I had 1 year. I thought I was done. And then this bad news happens. I'm like, really? And I was really on it that time, prophylactically, versus I'm going to see if it happened. And it didn't happen. It was a much shorter surgery. First surgery was like 6 hours, you know what I mean? So much shorter surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, so information, just now, and also I think it helps if you can step back a little bit and go, oh, this is interesting. And if you can get a little separation. It's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. It really is. But whether you like it or not, you got it. The only way through, the only way to get it, what is that saying? The only way out of it is through it, kind of thing. So get what you can.
Did your life change in a way that you had this feeling of, now I beat that and now I have to do this and that, like I have to open
100%.
my own comedy club now.
Yes,
I have to do
absolutely.
this now.
Yes, that was a big part of it. Like partly the way we all felt, we wasted that time during COVID. Like everybody felt like, oh, I got to make up for lost time. There was that portion of it in the thing. And then the other portion of it is, and none of us know how long we have. It just becomes more clear that when you're told you have cancer, you're like, oh shit. You mean
that could be?
You mean I'm mortal? Wait a minute.
Right.
You know what I mean? You mean I could die? What? And so yeah, so it makes that much clearer. or more, it's on the board now, you know? So yeah. So when I think, oh, I want to do stand up. Okay. Well, you get on it.
Like, now's the time.
You better do it. And then, oh, you know what? I don't like having to wait around for the gatekeeper. Oh, guess what? I'll be a gatekeeper. Oh, that's a new one. Who thought about that? And I'm going to let people who don't have opportunities. So I'm going to have a lot of women because, you know, they don't get as many opportunities to be in a real show at a real club with a real stage and not a backyard or, you know, like an actual show, you know, where people can come. It's a nice place. It's a theater, you know? So yes, I do that. I do have that more now. And I've always been, I like to do new things, you know what I mean? So, but I think I have more joy in it now. So that was my thing. So I had like themes. So this past year, the 2024, I am correct, was if you need physical therapy, then go get the physical therapy. If you need a massage, get a massage. What's the money? What are you going to do? Take it with you? No, you're not going to. I'm not going to. I told my son, I'm like, there's not going to be a cent left when your parents die. I'm going to go through all of it jokingly with him. He's like, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. But yeah, so like do the thing. Get the adjustment. Get the therapy. Get the heating pad. Get the wrist guard. Do the thing. Stop with the I can deal with it. Like, no, there's people out there that want to make you feel better. Let them. Like you lovely ladies. Yeah. You're doing good stuff.
We want to give a platform.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. You're doing a good thing. You are. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that you're here.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to go to our final question?
Well, I always struggle with which of the two of my favorites to ask, but I'll choose one today.
Okay.
I think I know the answer, but there might be some other story from your life that you want to share instead. And I'm curious. So what was the obstacle that you are most proud of overcoming?
What is the obstacle I was most proud of overcoming? Wow, that's a good question. For one, I think it's difficult to answer because I don't, unlike you guys who are so clear, you're like, oh, you do this. I don't ever see myself as actually successfully overcoming things. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's my negative self-talk or my imposter syndrome thing. I would say I did not plan on having a baby. It was an accident-ish. I wasn't on birth control, but I did want to get married. I did not want to get pregnant 9 months before my wedding. That was not a plan. And so I think so overcoming the anxiety and self-recrimination and self-thing of motherhood. Like, even though you're always a mother and it's not something you overcome, I know this is not a great answer to this question.
No, it is.
But here's the way it's saying, it's overcoming the idea that you're done, like motherhood. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Or I didn't even know if I could do it. It was a mystery. I'd never even thought of it. I mean, honestly, my sister didn't have any children. I didn't have nieces and I didn't do it. Right. I did. Even when there was like pregnancy, like you want to take the Lamaze, I'm like, nah, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to trust, I'm going to get it right, I guess. And I didn't do it that great. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of things. My husband got very sick. I didn't know what I was doing, and everything. But I didn't, there were times when it was very difficult. Like I didn't know if I could do this another day. It was hard. And I was by myself and my husband was very sick. I just didn't have no family support, nothing. And I didn't dwell. And I just kept doing it. I just got up every day and just had faith that I was going to do it. And I have to say that I'm proud of that. We're all proud of our kids, you know, as you'll see when your kids are out of the house and, you know, they're out and doing their life. And so it's not really my accomplishment necessarily, but I really like my kid. I really like him. I'd like him if he wasn't my kid. He makes me laugh. He's all the things that I remember thinking, I want him to like art. I want him to speak a second language. I want him to be able, like I had all these things that I thought would be important for a human being to be able to manage, to do their life. And it's not about you, but it is about you, right? A little bit. And I like him. I think he's a good person. I think he has his flaws, but as far as the motherhood portion, because I know this is hard for you guys to know, but Jane Morris, my director and for my writers group, she's a coordinator of the artist group. She said someone told her one time, motherhood's a stage. It's just a stage. You guys are in the full hands-on motherhood stage, but there's going to be a time in your life, just like me after the cancer, where I don't have cancer appointments all the time, where it's not about surviving the cancer, where you're going to be a mother. But like my kid's 21. And so there's that stage changes. And so I feel like that the fact that I like my kid and he likes me, and we went through issues and things like that, but we worked it out, and it could have gone to the point where I didn't like him and he didn't like me, but we didn't go there. And just as, for instance, I sent him a picture of me holding him as a baby with my sister Kimberly, like infant. And I sent it to him last night. And he texted me back, wow, I really let myself go. And I thought, to answer your question, I did it.
Yeah.
Good job.
You did. You're like, that was the best response I could have asked for.
He's funny.
Yeah.
So I overcame the fear that I'm going to fuck this person up. Like the first thing I thought of when they handed it to me is, I hope I don't kill it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And because they're so like, oh my God, what?
Mm-hmm.
You know that? You're like, wait, this couldn't live on its own. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I could leave my cat for 3 days, he'll kill a rat. You know what I mean? Like I can't, that idea to go from that person to the person where like, he texted me back, I've really let myself go. That is to me, one of my, I will have to say, and not to be like, oh, moms or whatever, but is something that I overcame. I overcame all the fears and all the anxiety that Mm-hmm. And I got to a place, I got past the hands-on motherhood stage, and I'm like, all right, it's on him now for the most part. It's his thing, and I'm glad I like him.
I'm glad I like him. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Kathryn, thank you so much for coming and sharing so much of your story with us.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me. It was really fun.
All right. So, Kathryn.
Oh my God.
I was stumped by her last one. I thought when I asked her what her biggest obstacle was that she was proud of overcoming, I thought she was going to say cancer.
Me too.
She said motherhood, which I totally related to. And I love that we got an additional little bonus story from her.
Yeah. I relate to that too. I mean, as we talked about motherhood quite a bit already on this podcast.
Yeah.
No, I thought the same thing. I was like, for sure, breast cancer.
Me too. During COVID.
Yeah, I mean, and she is so funny that she has these stories. Like, I'm just picturing where she was like, my husband kicked me out of the car because he wasn't allowed to go in.
Oh my God.
And then they wheel me out on a wheelchair and just is like
you can picture like
drop me on the
dumping the wheelchair over on the curb.
Go, get away.
In the hospital. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because that's how it was.
It's so not funny, actually.
It's not funny, but you have to like kind of make it a funny thing because it's just so crazy that that's how it was during COVID.
And that's what she said too. Otherwise, if I wouldn't make it funny, it's too much. Right. Like I can't even deal with it. Seriously, I have to make it funny. Otherwise, that's a real gift that she has.
Yeah.
I like it that we both were like, oh, I would just only see the negative. I would not be like it wouldn't be possible for me to see anything funny or anything positive out of it. And she was like, oh no, you girls, you would.
Like, no, that is your gift. Like, it's amazing that she can make light out of such a heavy situation because it does allow us to release it and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I love the way she talked too about during chemo when she lost her hair and she took a shower and felt the water
I know.
on her scalp and went running and felt the wind. And that like opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Like even seeing anything positive
Mm-hmm.
about it. Oh, that feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
And now she has her own comedy club.
Yep. Which we have to go support.
Kathryn Schorr
Comedy Club in Culver City.
Culver City, yes.
For our listeners, let's go.
Yeah. I can't wait to go.
And support our fellow female comedians
Exactly,
who have
because-
such a hard time breaking in.
Yeah. And she
past
puts
these
an emphasis
gatekeepers.
on it.
Yeah.
To like,
We have to help kick the door down for these women.
yeah. She always has more women than men in her shows.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go, everybody.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.